Talking about November 2017. An emphasis on the Libra-Scorpio section. Venus moves from Libra to Scorpio. There's an intense Kalasarpa yoga. Mars moves into Libra with Jupiter, and a whole lot more. So we're talking about November 2017 and what we can expect in this upcoming month. There's going to be a lot of importance placed on the Libra-Scorpio section of the zodiac as the planets are moving through those sections. I say the planets mainly, Sun, Mercury, Venus, which are always within each other's orbit, but also we have Jupiter still established in Libra. Mars is also going to join Jupiter later in the month at the end of November. So with that said, these Libra-Scorpio themes have to do, of course, with relationship and harmonizing our energy with others, and then facing the intensity and the drama and the lack of control with ourselves and others that arises once we do this in Scorpio. So these are universal principles. The Libra-Scorpio section of the zodiac has to do with that. Accommodating others, learning how to get along with others in Libra, and then once we do that and we open up that exchange, we realize how vulnerable we are, how much those people that we are involved with can leave or can die, and then we have to face all of this intensity and this feeling of vulnerability. And then rather than control those situations, learn how to control ourselves and learn how to make peace with the impermanence of life. That's the real Scorpio lesson. So right at the beginning of November, November 2nd, Venus enters Libra. So Venus had been in Virgo, and then November 2nd, Venus enters her sign of Libra, where it's going to also join Jupiter. Now, this is going to bring a lot of power to the Libra energy. Jupiter has been in Libra, which has been creating some disruptions as well as some some progress, I guess you would say, but progress through disruption, you would say, as we've seen things like the Me Too campaign of the recent sex scandals, especially with the Harvey Weinstein, and how that's brought a larger conversation, including with our president here in the U.S. and his relations with women that we revisited through the campaign. Also, Bill O'Reilly and Roger Ailes and Hugh Hefner recently passed away, who was also a symbol of that. So since Jupiter went into Libra, there's been this kind of convulsive, disruptive quality of these kinds of social causes and social themes, not just the Me Too men-women thing, but even larger social themes. We've recently even saw two ex-presidents, Obama and Bush, both speak out about the tone of dialogue in this country. And so trying to bring more awareness and hope to the social dialogue has been shown so far with Jupiter in Libra. When Venus goes into Libra, November 2nd, we should see even more wisdom and more accommodation and some softening of hardline rhetoric around these things socially, and of course personally, which is how these things influence your life. It's certainly a time to find consensus with your partners. Jupiter in Libra for the last month or so maybe has shown a difference in your philosophies with your partners, a difference in beliefs. Venus coming into the sign is going to try to bring more willingness to compromise and find consensus, at least for the several weeks that Venus is in Libra, because around the end of the month, Venus goes into Scorpio, and we have to deal with the vulnerability of those decisions. Like I said, this is the Libra-Scorpio transition, and we can really see it because Venus, the ruler, also makes this transit this month. On November 26th, Venus enters Scorpio, where those vulnerabilities will become more active, meaning those compromises that you yield toward another person opens you up, and then you have to deal with the vulnerability of being more open in Scorpio, but I'll talk more about that on or in the November 26th section of this forecast. So November 2nd, Venus enters Libra and brings more accommodation to the potential divisiveness of the social progress we've been seeing since Jupiter has entered. And it should bring some more accommodation and more consensus into your personal relationships as well. And then right after that, November 3rd, we have the full moon in Aries. Again, feels like a real opposition there. Venus enters Libra. Then the next day we have the full moon in Aries, which is trying to balance that Libra principle. Which means we're in the Libra cycle, which means that the recent new moon was in Libra. So we're really working on this theme for about half the month in November. And the halfway point of any cycle is the opposite sign. And so the full moon in Aries is to try to reestablish, reassert some individuality. So again, the day after Venus goes into Libra, we have the full moon in Aries saying, but my individuality is also important. So this really shows that in order to have healthy compromise with another person, which is Libra, you need to first have healthy boundaries and a healthy sense of identity and self, which is Aries. So you can feel that real push and pull of yourself and others November 3rd, November 4th, around that time with the full moon in Aries, maybe sort of laying down the gauntlet. And again, it's also opposite Jupiter and Venus that is in Libra, as we see on the chart here. Venus, Jupiter, Sun are opposite that full moon in Aries, and on November 3rd. So again, that shows this harmonizing and balancing, but emotionally, psychologically, you could feel very fired up on the 3rd and the 4th. And it's happening in Bharani Nakshatra. Bharani is ruled by Lord Yama, who is the god of restraints and observances, and these are yogic principles, especially the restraints. The observances is the second part of the Ashtanga Yoga, but the yamas, or the restraints, are the things that we need to hold back and to be responsible for. That's the simplest way to look at a yama. And it shows the consequences of our actions. So there may be a theme of consequences today where you really feel that sense of how your actions lead to the result that you're left with or that you're stuck with. So especially November 3rd and 4th, that could be very important. Then, you know, the moon travels through the zodiac. It's in its exaltation sign on the 4th and 5th and into the 6th. And then the 7th and 8th, it goes through Gemini, which places an emphasis on speech and communication. But then on November 9th through the 15th, actually, we see that moon is either joined Rahu, or it's hemmed between Rahu and Mars, or it's joined Mars. So I've kind of lumped this whole sort of transit of November the 9th through the 15th as being a sort of intense time, because we have moon Rahu in Cancer on November 9th and 10th, which is a lot of emotion because the moon rules Cancer. So it's a time to really try to connect with the heart, really go deeply into the heart. But then it's also joined Rahu, which is creating obsessions and maybe even some paranoia around your own feelings and your own emotions. So again, this is where we get out of sorts and we get hooked into some external drama and lose our deeper self. So it's a time, especially on the 9th and 10th, to not lose yourself and to not lose your emotion, not lose your deeper love and heart in the drama of the emotions on November 9th and 10th. And then 11th and 12th and into the 13th, we have moon Rahu hemmed in Leo. I'm sorry, we have the moon hemmed between Rahu and Mars in Leo. Now, this is going to show, you know, Leo is a fiery sign, which is about individuality and self-expression and passion and wanting to, you know, have your needs and desires, you know, taken care of and respected the most. So again, after the vulnerability of moon Rahu in Cancer, now we have the individuality of, but I'm the important one. So again, be aware of that and instead connect with a higher purpose. once you're coming from the heart, then you're also going to go in, once you're coming from the heart in Cancer, Moon in Cancer, then that heart is going to connect with pure vision and purpose in Leo. If you're not coming from the depth of the heart in Cancer, then you're not going to be coming from your true vision and power in Leo. Instead, it's going to be some power struggle. So be careful of power struggles November 10th and 11th and into the 12th. Then into the 12th and then the 13th, 14th, 15th, or I should say then November 13, 14, 15. For the most part, we have Moon Mars in Virgo. Again, Moon Mars conjunction can show a high capacity for arguing, fighting, battling with others, especially over details. Well, you said that, now you said that. I'm going to win some argument. That's the problem of Mars in Virgo. So Moon Mars, again, whenever the moon joins it, this becomes our sort of default mindset. Whatever the moon joins, it absorbs that influence. Because the moon doesn't have an active quality. It's a receptivity. The moon is like a vessel where we are absorbing that thing and trying to integrate it. So we're going to try to be integrating Mars in Virgo energy on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And, you know, again, that can be kind of, again, like emotionally cutting, divisive. So this is why that time period from November 9th through the 15th, we're going to go through this progression. Wanting to really connect with the heart, not the emotional obsessions from the 9th and 10th when the moon Rahu is in Cancer. So moon Rahu in Cancer on the 9th and the 10th. That's where we want to go deeper into the heart. Then 11th, 12th, and halfway into the 12th, it's moon in Leo, hemmed. So again, we want to connect with our true vision and purpose and power rather than get into power struggles with others. And then halfway through the 12th into the 13th, 14th, and 15th, moon Mars in Virgo, we want to organize that kingdom and that power in Virgo. And again, what can happen is we can say, here's the reason why I'm not so powerful. This detail, because of this thing you said and that thing that you did, and this kind of scorekeeping quality with Mars and Virgo can really get us involved with problems with other people at that time, rather than using the courage of Mars and the logic and sense of Mars to actually organize things better, take on the problem ourselves. This is what we're supposed to do with Mars energy, not thrust it on others, but take it on ourselves. Find where our information is weak, not your information is screwing me up. So November 9th through the 15th, that's how we could experience that. And now this is right before the moon then joins Jupiter and Venus in Libra. Yeah, as you see, the end of the month is really, I should say the middle to the end of the month is really loaded with a lot of explosive transits because of where the planets are now, that Libra-Scorpio theme, as I said before. But on the 16th and 17th, we see now the moon is in Libra, joined Venus and Jupiter. So that thing I said earlier about the compromise and the wisdom of Venus coming to bring more accommodation to the potentially judgmental and fiery quality of Jupiter in Libra, we're going to really feel that now. We'll really feel that November 16th and 17th because the Venus-Jupiter will be joined by the moon. And as I said, the moon, the reason the moon's so important in transit and each day is because that's how we feel. And it's the collective feeling. This is why when I say these things, this is the collective energy that we should all look at. And it's extremely important. People always want to focus on, well, what about in my chart? How's it going to affect my chart, my. The first thing is start paying attention to what I'm saying here, because these are your higher energies. These are the higher potentials. We start focusing and obsessing on ourselves, and that's in many ways the biggest problem. So instead of focus all this like you can't get anything out of this unless it's about your specific chart and you, listen to what I'm saying, because these higher energies are the real energies that you are going to be dealing with. It's what you're grappling with on a higher level. It's not actually a lower level because it's not specific to your chart. It's actually a higher level because it's a more metaphysical level that is in the collective. And it doesn't just mean all of us individuals, it means cosmic beings as well. It's the highest, it's the higher level. And people try to drag it down to the lower level when they try to bring it into their chart. Again, this is how I use astrology in my life. This is what I pay attention to. That's why I do these forecasts. So, Moon, Jupiter, Venus, this is this whole collective compromise and judgment and sense of justice around social themes, political themes, personal themes about masculine, feminine hierarchies and all that stuff that we're seeing in the world now, and that Venus is trying to really help us work through since it joined Libra early in the month. We're going to really feel that when the moon goes into that sign on the 16th and 17th. So it's going to be, it'll really enter your heart. So really feel that lesson. Okay? Really feel it, and not just feel it in a passive way, but then have that compel you to some great work, some great action. On the 16th and 17th, it'll be very important to do that. Then, here we go, the 18th, now we have the new moon in Scorpio. As you see, it's where the moon is very debilitated. It's at like 2 degrees of Scorpio. So November 18th, moon is very dark and debilitated. It's probably the most difficult day for the moon of the whole year. Especially when you get the new moon in Scorpio at this degree, which is like 2 degrees. Because you see in this chart here, the sun is at 2 degrees. So when the moon hits like 2 degrees, 25 seconds or whatever, that's the exact new moon. And the moon, of course, is debilitated at 3 degrees Scorpio. So 18th could be a pretty tough day with the moon dark, which is one of the main sources of strength. Is when the moon is bright, it's powerful. So when the moon is new, then the moon's completely dark. And Scorpio is the sign of its debilitation because of all of the restlessness and vulnerability and ungroundedness and worry and fear of Scorpio that we're trying to evolve. So know that it could be one of those days that's pretty tricky and pretty touchy. And, you know, one of the best things to do when the moon is stressed and difficult, and even when the moon goes through Scorpio in general, is don't try to work through emotional issues with people because you're not thinking clearly. You're too emotional and you're too triggered. We're very easily triggered when the moon goes through Scorpio. So on the 18th and the 19th, both of those days, just let, and actually even into the 20th, put your grievances on hold with other people, right? And again, work on yourself. Like, hold the difficult energy yourself. The problem is that when we feel stressed out, we want to dump it on somebody because it's hard for us to hold it. And of course, what in the Scorpio sense, we feel like, well, they deserve it. We're all righteous, and well, because I need to stop you from doing it to others, and we get all jacked up on some righteous cause, which is just a lot of projection. So one of the shadows of Scorpio is, you know, literally, you know, perpetrating like emotional cruelty against another person because we feel justified because they did it to someone else. Well, I need to do this because you've done it to others, so now I need to do it to you. It's a total... And again, that's the negative quality. The positive quality is enormous devotion. When we're able to hold that pain, then we connect with the truth of what's in our heart. And it's harder to hold it in Scorpio. It's easier to hold it in Cancer and Pisces, the other water signs. Scorpio, it's harder to hold it because we're trying to protect our emotional vulnerability, and sometimes that means that we need to have a clear boundary, which is why Mars is the ruler. And that's painful to the heart because the heart doesn't want boundaries. It wants to flow. So this whole kind of conflict is felt in Scorpio, particularly when the moon is there and when the moon is really dark. So the nakshatra of this new moon is Vishaka as well, which is related to Lord Indra and Lord Agni, who are the kings of the gods, the mighty you know, protectors of Dharma and truth. So, you know, elevate your emotions and your feelings beyond all of that scorekeeping and, you know, getting even and all of that. You know, again, people want to say, well, what's the remedy? The remedy first is to understand it. It's like, well, what's the mantra to do that? Well, first understand it. And then say any mantra that connects to your heart. And you might not think that's very good because there should be a mantra for everything. The best mantra is the mantra that you'll do. And that's the one that's connected to your beloved deity. If your beloved deity is Shiva, then that's the one you want to always say. Again, if you don't have a mantra and you're trying to use things like mantras to protect you from astrological stuff, the first thing is to find a beloved deity and a mantra that you love. Then you won't feel like all the astrology is out to get you. Then everything is an extension of your beloved deity and of your beloved, guru, and of the beloved universe. Then that's the mantra that you say in all situations, because you're seeing everything as an emanation of that, as a lesson from that great God and that great deity and that great force. So the problem when someone doesn't have a mantra or something isn't that you need the mantra to defeat this thing right now that's making you upset now. I get this all the time. What's the mantra for this difficult thing? The mantra is the mantra to your beloved deity, because it needs to be connected to devotion and love, because that's what's missing in the equation of wanting to be fixed and cured of the bad stuff. Once you see that, then you see this isn't the bad stuff. It's just a challenge. It's emotional intensity that's trying to connect you to your heart. So the problem isn't to stop it or to defeat it. It's to learn how to connect to the heart. And the devotion to the guru and to the beloved deity is the connection to the heart. So ponder that, and ponder that on this day and at this time, 18th and 19th. If you're feeling all whacked out, connect to the heart. Connect with pure love. The easiest way is something that's beyond. If it's like your family or your kids or some people, these are the things that let us down. And we become aware of it in Scorpio. This is where we become aware of the fact that we're hitching our wagon to people. It doesn't matter if you love the person or love the child. The child is not going to be your salvation. The other person is not going to be your salvation. Your salvation comes from God and the truth in your heart. And that's what Scorpio compels us to do. That's why Scorpio, underneath it all, is a lot of pure devotion, rather than the frustration that this person who I tried to love so much doesn't love me, and it's so painful, and now I need to get into this whole power struggle with them. Again, that's why it comes after Libra, where we get involved in this dynamic and we get hooked. Then in Scorpio, we're like, here I thought you were going to be my savior, and you're not. We get all jacked up. So elevate the emotions, go deeper into devotion. Because this is, in many ways, Scorpio can be the most devotional if we can harness all of that intensity. And Vishaka Nakshatra is one of the nakshatras of Scorpio that has a connection to Lord Indra. Two of the nakshatras, which is Vishaka, the first one, and Jyeshta, the last one, are ruled by Lord Indra. It was the great, courageous god, the god of emotional courage. And the middle one, Mitra, the middle one, Anuradha, is related to Radha, who is the great devotee of Lord Krishna. So the real power of Scorpio is devotion and loyalty and commitment and courage, emotional courage. So I talked a lot about that because that's going to also be that's also the beginning of that 30-day Scorpio cycle on the 18th. And I'll do a full update about that, as I always do. Then November 24th and 25th, so I skip ahead, we see that on the 21st and the 22nd, especially on the 21st, I should say the 20th and the 21st, we have Moon Saturn in Sagittarius, which is also going to be pretty intense and heavy. Moon Saturn, this is a good time for introspection and solitude. And again, the way you can see this is it's often hard to connect with that when the moon goes through Scorpio, so we need to not project things out and give people a hard time. But then the moon goes into Sagittarius, which is more hopeful and inspired, where we can feel the blessings of our guru much more easily because it's ruled by Jupiter. And so we see on the 20th and 21st, there's Moon Saturn conjunction in Sagittarius. So that's very good for solitude, introspection, connecting to the guru, connecting to higher teachings. And then on the 24th and 25th, we have the moon join Ketu in Capricorn. This could be an explosive point, because the moon is also about to break out of that Kala Sarpa Yoga with all the planets in between, Rahu and Ketu. So on the 24th and 25th, we'll see Moon Ketu in Capricorn. It could be, some, a sort of feeling of heavy karma, because it's Moon Ketu. Ketu is about sort of past karma. And this includes the past karma of history, of the world, and also of in your life. Particularly because all the planets are between Rahu and Ketu as well, forming that Kala Sarpa Yoga. There can feel, it can feel like a lot of heaviness and pressure, because the moon has been inside that Kala Sarpa Yoga since it went through Cancer. So here a couple weeks later, as it's going through Capricorn and getting squeezed by the South Node, there could be a lot of stress and pressure. Might be some, good time for solitude or wanting to feel alone, or feeling alone even if you're around people. Again, rather than let that lead to depression and grief, which is what we often do, use it as a catalyst and see it as a catalyst of, beauty and truth and salvation, because only, your salvation is in your hands, in no one else's. And if we want to remain silly and immature about this, and reject the lessons of Saturn, then we wind up being bitter and sad and depressed. But when we're grown up and we're mature, we embrace that solitude rather than curse it because nobody understands me and I'm all alone. Hey, you know what? To a yogi, it's like, yay, I'm all alone. I'm not dependent on others. It doesn't mean we reject others. It means that my happiness and my salvation and my power and truth and wisdom is not dependent on other people filling me up. So we might feel that pressure and stress today, especially on the 25th. We also want to remember that the previous month, when the moon broke out of this Kala Sarpa Yoga, that's when we had that unfortunate incident in Las Vegas, right as that was happening. So this is how explosive that point is. And it's not going to be that explosive this month because Saturn is an aspect in Ketu at the same time, but it's that same kind of energy of things like sort of blowing up, and blowing out. And we might see some intense things on the 24th and 25th in the world as well. So November 26th, Venus enters Scorpio, like I said earlier. This is going to bring a focus on that intense emotion. It's going to bring it into your relationships and all those things I described about Scorpio, the vulnerabilities and all of that. You could really feel that in your relationships for the next month or so. It's very intense time. So with your partners and partnerships, you want to be aware of that quality of emotional intensity and passion and drama. It could bring some deep sort of sexual healing as well, particularly those who have gone through sexual trauma and whatnot. And again, we're seeing a lot of this in that Me Too campaign. A lot of women coming out talking about their past sexual abuse and trauma. And so as Venus goes through Scorpio, it's actually very good for that transformative work and having the courage to do that. That includes men too who have been sexually traumatized. So that could be an important thing that happens during that transit of Venus through Scorpio, but it can also bring a lot of passion and romance and devotion into your romantic relationship if it's solid. And if if you're aligned in other ways. The other thing about on the 26th and the 27th, there's an aspect from Jupiter onto the moon as the moon goes through Aquarius. So this is also good for connecting your heart, mind, and emotions with your higher teachings and your teachers, which is the Jupiter influence, and also in the world, because Aquarius is about uniting with higher causes and purposes and themes that are bigger than just yourself and your own personal power or platform or anything like that. Then the 28th and 29th, the moon goes through Pisces, which is also obviously good for spirituality and metaphysics and creativity and romance. Again, it's also possible to just want to escape from the big, bad, nasty world at that time. But again, if you have sadhana and spiritual practice and a lot of devotion, then you can escape into the beauty of the metaphysical cosmic world rather than escaping from all of the pain of the world into some kind of drugs or entertainment, watching TV or checking out, tuning out. So be aware of that November 28th and 29th. And then November 30th, the last big shift of the year, actually. Big shift as far as slower moving planets or outer planets, and that is Mars goes into Libra for the next, actually for the rest of the year, and into early 2018. This Mars transit through Libra could, definitely show like some social unrest and some frustration boiling over about the themes that I've been talking about. Socially and politically, could see a lot of political unrest and shakeups and international, potential violence and battles and struggles. Hopefully not war and whatnot, but we could see all kinds of chaos and unrest. That could also be socially, like around the world in certain social, cultures where like for instance in Spain there's unrest about the Catalan or the Catalan wanting to secede, and there are hotbed social protests around the world that could erupt. We could see some bigger social unrest in the U.S. as well. We saw some protests for sure, like around the eclipse that had to do with white supremacy and carrying torches and all this crazy stuff that we thought we were over. We might see some more social unrest around these themes where minorities are not feeling appreciated. Maybe a catalyst event like a shooting or something, and an insensitive reaction from the government or something. There's a lot of tension in the world, and Mars, Jupiter in Leo could show a real flashpoint culturally. And then personally, of course, it's also, Libra is the sign of compromise and relationship, and Mars, Jupiter together can be pretty combustible, where, again, Venus went through it earlier, which was trying to bring appeasement. Now Venus is in Scorpio and Mars is in Libra, and we could see our fighting back to reclaim our lost ground or something that we compromised on earlier. Again, this is why it's so important to be clear about what you can compromise on and what you can't. If you're clear about that, then Mars, Jupiter in Libra may show a lot of independence in your relationships, which is fine if a couple has healthy boundaries. If they don't, then they're just fighting over all these things they've been compromising on that were not worked out properly. So keep that in mind. And I hope this was helpful. I do daily updates that you can try for only 50 cents if you are interested. So this is an overview of the month with some important things focused on. But if you want to get daily updates, daily forecasts, and comprehensive full moon and new moon forecasts for your sign as well, then you can join. Only 50 cents. You can try it for 2 weeks, a 2-week trial, and then you can stay a member for $39.95 a month if you want to keep going. If not, then you can still try it for 50 cents and cancel before the trial period. But I tell you, this is the way that I use astrology in my life all the time. It is. Because these are the cycles that we're all dealing with. And as I said earlier, it's the higher vibration. The higher vibration is not you focusing on your chart. That's actually the lower vibration. The higher vibration is, what is the universal quality of this planet? What's the universal quality of this sign? How am I working on that lesson now for this period of time? Not, how can this help me get what I want? That's always there. That's another thing to look at. But these daily transits, the daily nakshatra, Vara Lord, which is the planet that rules the day, planet that rules the sign, planet that rules the nakshatra, aspects, all of this I focus on each day in this Vedic Astrology training lab. When you join, you also get 8 hours of free classes and all that for only 50 cents. So check it out.